Hello everyone, my name is Tony. I'm a technology and product evangelist at Thycotic Centrify, based out of our Redwood Shores office in Northern California. And I'm really thrilled for the opportunity to talk to you today about Zero Trust security, least access and privilege. Note that these slides will be made available for you to download. So with the pleasantries out of the way, let's jump right into it. You're here because you believe that Zero Trust is a model you can adopt to help prevent data breaches. My goal in this presentation is to open your eyes to a specific Zero Trust on-ramp, one that we and our customers know can give you the biggest bang for the buck at a time when you need to be selective in your IT security investments. That on-ramp is Zero Trust for Privileged Access Management, or PAM. So in the remainder of this prezo, I'm going to look at why PAM is an important consideration and how critical PAM is to an effective Zero Trust approach to security. So let's begin with some evidence, some statistics to back up the argument that concentrating our limited resources and budget on managing privileged identities is a logical and practical first step in the right direction. Today's security is not secure. Now that's quite the provocative statement, but we're told by industry analysts such as Gartner that despite expectations that IT and risk management spending will hit $143 billion in 2021, 2/3 of organizations worldwide are still being breached. And worse, they're being breached on average 5 times in a 12-month period. So something has to change. Gone are the days when hackers charged at the front door, guns blazing, trying to bulldoze their way into the network. Notoriety is not what they're looking for. Hacking is a big business today. And they don't hack in anymore. They simply log in using compromised credentials, walking through that front door, masquerading as a legitimate employee, or for example, a third-party vendor or outsourced IT contractor. Now this is backed up by a ton of quantitative research, some of which you see here. At Centrify, we conducted a study where 74% of respondents whose organizations have been breached acknowledged it involved access to privileged accounts. And that number closely aligns with independent industry analyst reports, such as Forrester, who estimate that 80% of security breaches involve compromised privileged credentials. Bottom line, threat actors work really hard to obtain privileged credentials and elevated privileges because that's what they need to move laterally around the network, hunting down sensitive assets that they can exfiltrate and monetize, or encrypt and hold for ransom. And there are endless examples in the press of the use of compromised privileged accounts during a data breach. Here's a few examples on the screen. From Citrix, where an estimated 10 terabytes of confidential data was exfiltrated, to Twitter, where accounts belonging to Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, President Barack Obama, Joe Biden and others were used to extort bitcoins from their followers, to Capital One, where the attacker was able to remotely fetch 700 folders of customer data from AWS S3 storage. Now all this tells us that if we can stop attacks that leverage stolen credentials and abuse privilege, we will greatly reduce the number of security breaches. And the way to do that is with a Zero Trust approach to managing privileged access. With privileged access management, we can govern and protect access to those keys to the kingdom privileged accounts that we ordinarily hand out to our administrators who we implicitly trust. And as I'm sure you're all aware, implicit trust is not a part of the Zero Trust model. With Zero Trust, the old security mantra, trust but verify, is turned on its head and now becomes never trust, always verify. The US Department of Defense is also behind Zero Trust to repeatedly question the premise that users should be implicitly trusted. They prescribe Zero Trust to implement the concept of least privileged access, to be applied for every access decision where the answers to the questions of who, what, when, where, and how are critical for appropriately allowing or denying access to resources. So if we're all on board with Zero Trust, how does that play into the world of Privileged Access Management, or PAM? Well, originally, around 2010, the Zero Trust model was very much network-focused. Since then, Forrester has evolved Zero Trust with their Zero Trust Extended, to consider modern infrastructures and new attack surfaces, workloads, devices, data, and people and identities. With the Zero Trust Extended model, you now have more choice. There are multiple starting points on the path to Zero Trust. However, as we just heard, one driving principle should be the fact that the easiest way for cyber attackers to gain access to sensitive data is by compromising a user's identity. And things get even worse if a stolen identity belongs to a privileged user who has broad access, or those keys to the kingdom. So which on-ramp to choose? You all have limited budget. You could sprinkle it across all of these. Our argument is that given the data I just presented, securing and managing privileged identities would be the biggest bang for the buck. Most of our customers start here as their initial on-ramp. They see the value of embarking on their Zero Trust journey with PAM first, spreading to the other areas once that foundation is in place. However, I've worked with many organizations who have embarked on their PAM journey with Zero Trust in mind, only to fail by not properly understanding the key moving parts to PAM. In a nutshell, they invested in one side of the PAM coin, but not the other, which arguably is the most critical to support a Zero Trust PAM posture. So think of PAM as a two-sided coin. On one side is vaulting, on the other, privilege elevation. Vaulting is pretty straightforward. Think of a password vault like an impenetrable database to store those keys to the kingdom account passwords instead of implicitly trusting administrators with them. Let me be clear, vaulting is a critical part of the PAM equation. It's often the first thing organizations deploy because it's easier, and it can help when the auditor tells you that you're not protecting access to shared privileged accounts properly. However, vaulting alone is not designed to implement the least privileged access control model that Zero Trust and related best practices, such as zero standing privileges, require. Privilege elevation, the other side of the PAM coin, is what's required. Privilege elevation assumes administrators are untrusted. We give them zero administrative rights out of the gate, something we also call least privilege. But we allow them to request elevated privileges to perform their legitimate job functions, with suitable oversight and verification. This is least privilege. Never trust, always verify. Sound familiar? When the privilege task is done, the elevated privilege are then taken away, so the user is back to a least privilege state. This side of the PAM coin aligns perfectly with Zero Trust principles. But as you're walking down the PAM path towards Zero Trust, make sure you pay close attention to its ability to expand beyond just the data center. With cloud migration projects resulting in IT infrastructure and applications in a cloud platform such as AWS, and even multiple cloud platforms, you need to critically assess the PAM vendor's ability to handle these scenarios without breaking PAM or resulting in some kind of Frankenstein with complicated pieces being stretched beyond their limits in an attempt to accommodate this modern, hybrid, and multi-cloud infrastructure. Zero Trust is gaining a lot of momentum. Remember the SolarWinds attack? Here's a couple of quotes from recent articles at securityroundtable.org and the Wall Street Journal. Zero Trust relies on this least privilege access control model. Privilege elevation, one side of the PAM coin, also relies on least privilege. That's why PAM can be so very effective in preventing such identity-based attacks. Another commentary on the SolarWinds attack by John Sherman, the acting CIO for the Department of Defense in the US. Now, in this article, he essentially advocates a Zero Trust approach that can verify whether a user or program should be able to do what it's asking to. This suggests an identity-centric approach to security versus a network-centric approach. PAM is ideal for this, where both humans and applications need to talk to each other using identities, often with extensive privileges. So, implementing a least privilege access control model and governing and controlling access to these identities makes perfect sense. A PAM solution to support Zero Trust must be designed with least privilege in mind and not retrofitted. Zero Trust requires this least privilege. So please question anybody who tells you that PAM is just a password vault and that a vault alone is sufficient to support a Zero Trust model. It must include both sides of the PAM coin. You also need a PAM solution that does not include privilege elevation as an afterthought. And sadly, there are too many PAM vendors who spend all their R&D funds on their vault and not enough on privilege elevation, so be careful with your assessments. Many organizations are embarking on data transformation and cloud migration projects. This fragments IT infrastructure, and it can make it impossible for a legacy PAM solution to properly govern and secure access to privileged accounts and your critical systems and data in the cloud. You need a similarly modern PAM solution designed for the cloud, not a legacy product designed only for the data center. Legacy on-premises PAM deployments are complicated and can easily take months, if not years, to be fully operational, requiring heavy infrastructure and operational investments. PAM as a service benefits from tenant deployments in less than an hour. No infrastructure to deploy and manage, no lock-in, subscription-based pricing, and agile feature innovations with no downtime. Especially now with more users working from home, you also need a PAM solution that's accessible from anywhere, both for internal users as well as outsourced IT or other third parties. PAM as a service satisfies that, and by not relying on a VPN to access PAM, you avoid the associated overheads and risks. So cast your mind back to the 2013 Target breach involving compromised VPN credentials. There's been many more VPN-related data breaches since then. Now, I've barely scratched the surface in this short presentation, but I hope you walk away with a better sense for why you should consider PAM as your first on-ramp for Zero Trust. 70 to 80% of data breaches involve compromised privileged credentials. There's multiple Zero Trust on-ramps. PAM as an identity-centric approach to access control should be your first consideration. But be cautious. PAM does not equal vault. PAM is a combination of vaulting plus privilege elevation. You need both to maximize your risk mitigation, and you need privilege elevation with its least privileged foundations to really provide that Zero Trust foundation. A modern PAM as a service will better support your digital transformation and cloud migration strategy, accommodating hybrid and multi-cloud infrastructures. So that wraps it up for this presentation. I hope you found this valuable, and please enjoy the rest of your day.